Okay, and I'm going to pass it over to Mike.
All right, thanks, Jen. Yep, if you can bring up the presentation and we'll get started. I'm really happy that you're all here. So yeah, welcome to the listening session. So our intention at this meeting is to give it this quick presentation and then to get your feedback. So the important thing here is to get your feedback at the end. So thank you for joining. All right, so what we wanted to go over is that ELAP is going to move toward becoming a TNI accredited body. And so what that implies for what that means for you guys is that we will be moving toward a TNI dual accreditation. So we're going to go over that today and then get your feedback. Next slide, please. All right, so here are the people presenting today at ELAP. So my name is Mike Head. As Jenna mentioned, I'm the Program Development, Research, and Enforcement Unit Supervisor. Jen McLaren at PPU, as we call it, PPU Supervisor, and also who. So thank you both for being here with me as well. All right, next slide. All right, so I wanted to quickly talk about, why are we doing this? So the path to becoming a TNI accrediting body, why are we choosing to do this? Historically, we had an expert panel review in 2014, and the decision was that the ELAP should come back to TNI. And so, in order to do that, and going to the requirements, in order to do that, we need to achieve everything necessary to be to get TNI accrediting body recognition, including complying with the standard, of course, but a lot of that was improvements to our quality management system. And we think that we're ready. So we're moving towards doing it. So one of the requirements for being a TNI AB is that we must offer full TNI accreditation in California. And so how that impacts you is that we're going to offer a voluntary, and you see voluntary is highlighted there, a voluntary full TNI supervision option for laboratories. Next slide. All right, so here are the goals. So as I just mentioned, TNI is going to go toward a dual accreditation model. And so labs that are currently or in the future going to be accredited through ELAP, you have the choice of either the existing model of TNI -2 or full TNI. And note again that the full TNI accreditation is optional. So some of the differences, there are going to be fees associated with each of those options, and that to be an ELAP accredited lab in California, you still have to meet the minimum of TNI -2. Next slide, please. All right, so just the visual, what that looks like. Current ELAP, TNI -2 accreditation. I think most of you are familiar with that. And then the future state, when we are TNI accredited body, is we'll still offer the TNI -2, but we'll voluntarily offer the second part of the menu is the full TNI accreditation, which is a voluntary alternative to TNI -2. So what that means, and it's fine to stay on the slide, but and what that means for the labs that choose to keep what they currently have is nothing is going to drastically change. All right, so full TNI accreditation pathway. So for us, the offering, what that means for you is you need to meet full TNI requirements. If you want the full TNI accreditation pathway, you need to meet the full TNI requirements. And what that means is the differences are we're going to need to do 2 PTs per year for each field of accreditation, and you'll have to meet the technical manager requirements within TNI, which are a little bit different than what we have right now. There will be a different fee structure that is in progress and determined at this time. And again, I wanted to highlight that this full TNI accreditation pathway is optional, voluntary, all the different synonyms for not required, up to you. Um, but that's where we're going right now. Right, next slide, please. All right, so as we mentioned, this there will be a new fee model. So there's work happening right now with fee stakeholder work groups to develop that proposal. There will be fee meetings run by the Division of Administrative Services. The next one is going to be on March 6th. If you want to, if you're interested in that, you can subscribe to the Gov delivery at the Water Board's website. On the top right now, there's a little thing that says subscribe. You click on that and go through the process. And also, you could just view the webcast at the address you see on the screen. The Water Board's fees branch, so they're going to facilitate the meeting. Based on outcome of that meeting, they're going to present their new proposed fee structure to the board in September of this year, with the intention of those fees, that new fee structure being adopted during that September meeting. So that's the current detail on the fees. Next slide. All right, so an important part of this, and that's what this is to have engagement with the community. And so, details are evolving. So the timelines may change, procedures will be updated, and we intend to collaborate with the community with that. That includes stakeholder feedback that we're doing right now. So listening sessions and feedback sessions. We're going to meet again several times throughout the year. We will be submitting a TNI accreditation body application around that same time. We'll go over time in a second. And that involves submitting processes. So, but the important part is keeping where we want to keep that engagement high. So here's the timeline. So 2026, we're in 2026, we're beginning that formal process of applying for TNI accredited body status. September is that board meeting that we talked about where the fees are going to get approved. November, where our new certificate program, you can start submitting applications right now. No, that's ours. Sorry about that. It's us submitting applications to become a TNI accredited body. That will be evaluated and it will be voted on whether we will be brought into the fold for TNI, and that'll be in December. If all that works out great, we expect January of next year to be granted TNI state accredited body status. So that's the timeline. Next slide, please. All right, so very quickly, like why that matters. This is why we think it matters. So this is going to really reinforce California's leadership nationally. Really allows us to be at the forefront of leading the protection of public health and the environment, and really continue to be a leader in this space. It will provide consistency and credibility. There will be cost savings for California labs and labs that are already implementing full TNI. This program does support those labs that are already doing it. So the overall goals of this, we really think that this move is strengthening the service that we provide to the aligns us with the national standard and really supports not only the public health and environmental protection goals of the state, but it also supports the laboratories in California. And so with that, this session is meant to gather your feedback, and we're going to use that feedback guide us down this pathway. So again, stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more to come. And I look forward to hearing what everybody has to say. All right, so this brings us into the feedback portion. As Jen had mentioned at the beginning, the mode that we're going to do is raise up your hand if you have a comment. You'll be called on only to can provide your feedback at that time. Definitely keep your hand raised, or you'll jump out of queue. So it kind of goes in the order that you raise your hand. If you don't want to speak up now in the forum, you can also send comments directly to elapca_comments at Waterboards at the address you see there. Right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mike, for that presentation. And so we're going to do our best to try and keep this orderly. So I'm going to let Annalyn try and keep going. So please wait until we call you to unmute yourselves. And what we'll try and do is say who's coming next. So we'll, like right now, Dan Jackson, we see your name up first, and then Josie afterwards. So we'll try and do our best to kind of at least give you some warning that we're going to call on you next. So Annalyn, have at it.
Okay, Dan Jackson, go ahead and put your hand down when you finish asking a question, and you can go ahead and speak.
Okay, my question is pretty simple. There's one place where the ELAP regulations and TNI standard are inconsistent or incompatible, which is around PTs. Because the ELAP regulations require that if we fail a PT, we must run another one immediately, whereas the TNI standard requires that you pass two out of three, and doesn't require an immediate reanalysis. So what will you do? How will you handle that inconsistency? Is my question.
That's a great question. I think at this point too, I just wanted to clarify. We probably don't have a lot of answers to many questions. We are just at the very beginning stages of this planning. So that's a really great point. So we will note that as something we need to make sure that we consider, and we have clarity on how we're going to handle those kinds of situations.
Okay, Josie Tellers, go ahead and unmute yourself, and you can go ahead and start.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I have two questions. What revision version of 2016 TNI will you follow for the full TNI option? Because the current regulation was based on 2016 TNI revision 2.1. And as you know, there has been additional revisions since then. That's my first question.
Again, we're not really answering questions. We're just taking comments. So that's a great point, and we will note it down.
And my second question is, as far as the regulatory process on ELAP, since this is going to be a change, I did not see the regulatory process on revising the regulation included in the slides on the timeline. Thank you.
Kenneth J. Brown, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, good afternoon, everybody. My question is similar to Josie's in a bit, and this is just a comment. Once California becomes a TNI accreditation body, I'm still kind of confused as how do these accreditation bodies update whenever the TNI standard gets updated? And how would they go through the change process when the standard gets updated?
Stephen Clark, go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you. I similarly have a question, but don't expect an answer today. Cal ELAP purposefully reduced the types of laboratories that they were performing assessments for. Specifically, it was primarily targeted to drinking water labs, and then the rest of the laboratories needed to use TPAs. I'm curious if the new framework will include an expansion of ELAP staff to have greater capabilities for laboratory assessments beyond drinking water, or if the laboratories will continue to use TPAs in the kind of complex technologies area. And thank you.
Teresa Morrison, when you're ready, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, for those of us who are currently TNI labs, but need to offer accreditation for many methods that are not currently offered by ELAP, will the options for methods and matrices be expanded past just what the California regulatory business partners have requested? Is that going to be a wider option, or are we going to need to go through another TNI body for those additional methods? So hopefully that'll be a discussion point within the moving forward.
Debbie McKee, go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready.
Thanks, and good afternoon, and thanks everyone for actually some excellent questions there. I just wanted to say, just as a representative that works with many POTW and labs within the Central Valley, one thing we are really concerned about is cost, and that it's not only with the labs, it was with everything. So I appreciate the discussion about having a new fee structure. I just would say is to the extent we can see definitely a benefit for especially those agencies that want TNI accreditation, not to have to go through things twice, and for California to provide that. But for those that don't need it, that the cost burden of that is not spread to them, and that would be very important. So although you might see a benefit that California is a leader, that's not necessarily a benefit that those TNI -1 labs might need. So thank you.
Paul Junio, go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready.
Thanks. I'm sorry I missed the presentation. I joined in late. I had it on my calendar incorrectly. I've heard a previous comment, and I don't know that it was addressed, that laboratories located within California would have the option of not using California ELAP as their AB. If that is the case, I'm curious where that fits in with the TNI regulations, because I don't know that that is what is allowed through TNI.
Hey, Paul, generally speaking, we're not answering questions, but I will say that I think you might have misheard. So we're just not requiring labs to go full TNI. It will be an option available to them in California if they choose to.
You, Madsen, go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready.
Good afternoon. Hi. My question is relatively shallow and more straightforward compared to all the great questions previously brought up. I just trying to interpret ELAP's vision a little better. That is in the future. Is this like a transitional stage? Is ELAP anticipating to have all labs aiming towards full TNI quality control system, or that's not the case, or this is actually having both options will be would be actually, let's say, implement will be offered for quite a while. Thank you.
Josie Tellers, go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready.
All right, sorry, I had to ask more questions as I was hoping that it would have been asked before me. So my comment is, how will ELAP address the provision under ELAP regulations for technical manager position, allowing CWA certification or equivalent, pending on the size of the laboratory they're in and the type of capability they are providing as far as their laboratory testing capability. Additionally, currently, ELAP recognizes for small laboratories that a technical manager can also be a quality assurance manager. TNI have a specific provision that the quality assurance manager will need to be separate or have individual independency from the laboratory operations. Thank you.
Jeff Schindler, go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready.
Hi, my question, and I also missed the first half of the presentation, was for getting reinstated for accreditation for a missed PT, because right now California requires an on-site assessment, which is incredibly burdensome, and that's not covered in TNI. So I just wanted to make sure that it would be following the TNI standard, or what the situation would be for that. Thank you.
And I just will pop in here and say that we are recording this presentation and we will post it to the California ELAP YouTube page, so that if you missed part of it, or if you have any colleagues who missed the presentation, they can rewatch it later.
Kenneth Brown, go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready.
I just want to add clarification that the current TNI standard does allow for small laboratories that the technical manager and the quality manager can be one and the same person. So I just want to add that clarification, that there are instances where they allow them to be both one and the same person.
Thank you, Ken.
Troy Turpin, go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready.
All righty, very good. I'm just, unfortunately, I'm another one of the people who came in a little late. I'm hoping there's going to be an ELAPCon 2027, and if so, I'm hoping that we're thinking that we are going to have a session where we go over frequently asked questions and an update of where we stand with California ELAP going to TNI during the ELAPCon 2027. That's all.
I won't answer a bunch of questions, but yes, there will be an ELAPCon 2027, and we will provide more details soon.
Okay,
2026, because I apparently don't know what year it is. There will be an ELAPCon 2026 too, but I anticipate there will also be one in 2027.
If there isn't any more comments, I'll go ahead and hand this back to Jen and Mike. Thank you, everybody. Those are really great questions. And hopefully we'll get back to you as we go through this process.
Okay, I'm just gonna hold out for one more second, just in case we have, oh, see? Go ahead, Sushmita. Oh, you're still muted, Sush.
Okay, there you are. I'm having serious technical issues. Thank you, Jen. So first, I'd like to acknowledge and thank ELAP staff for the effort and transparency in expanding this accreditation program and for creating this opportunity for stakeholder input. We appreciate the proactive communication and the willingness to engage labs early on in this development process. That said, I do have a couple of questions, or more like comments. As the program evolves, you did mention that ELAP, that this is strictly a voluntary program, But does ELAP anticipate that any state or regulatory programs may eventually require full TNI accreditation? Or is the intent for this to remain strictly voluntary, even long-term basis? And I know you're not going to answer, but that was one of the concern that I had. And then the second one that I wanted to ask was, can ELAP provide insight into the projected fee differences between TNI -2, if there will be any, and the full TNI accreditation, including whether a cost impact analysis will be conducted for public agency labs? Thank you, Jen.
Augustine Peary, go ahead and unmute when you're ready.
Hi, sorry. I think this may have been already addressed, but one question we had is if the FOAs would stay the same. So, for example, our TNI scope is much bigger than what California offers in terms of FOAs. So that would be something also to be able to jump to a single TNI cert in California. It'd have to be a bigger offering in terms of FOAs, at least for a lab like ours. Just want to bring that.
Lisa Stafford, go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready.
Hi, I am just going to add a comment as someone who was extremely traumatized by the way that California got out of TNI many years ago and what the lab had to do to scramble to reaccredit. I would hope that the water boards will put together some sort of management plan and timeline to allow labs to less traumatically transfer their accreditations as needed, especially when you have a lab that is TNI accredited in another state currently, and then TNI -2 in California. We don't want to be stuck in the position of being forced to change because California is now a TNI accreditor. But the way our cycle and audits work is we're not ready to actually apply to California specifically as a TNI accreditor.
Great. I just want to pause for a second and thank everyone that's already spoken, and also thank you, Lisa. We really appreciate the quality of these comments. They are very helpful and just show how much of a great community that we're thankful to be a part of. Alex, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Hi, my question was actually more on the assessment side of things. My understanding is from our last audits, our TPAs were told by ELAP that they have to assess the entire scope, as opposed to where TNI requires their assessments to be by technology. I want to see if that would change because this may help labs. If it's by technology, it could potentially be a shorter audit, which might be a cheaper audit overall too. So that's my question on the assessment side of it.
Brittany Worthen, go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready.
Yeah, my question goes along with those FOAs that somebody just asked too. We have the MURs that get updated, and ELAP is always a year or two behind, and we're not always running the most current, but I assume through TNI we would need to be running the most current versions. So making sure that if we are TNI accredited and we update our versions, we're not having to go through all those steps like we did with ELAP of the revised request and then the assessments and stuff. I know we could waive the assessment, but those revised kind of like amendments to our certifications. So take that into account too, if we're required to do one thing and ELAP hasn't updated those FOAs too, which we're going to use.
Thank you for that comment. Ken Brown, go ahead and unmute when you're ready.
This is a similar comment regarding FOA tables and my recent experience with our last on renewal accreditation is that I know that T&I has different classifications for methods on their FO tables that are different than ELAP. And so I was wondering if ELAP becomes a T&I accreditation body, will they have two separate FO tables when it conforms to T&I, how T&I's classification, and then one in which what ELAP is currently doing, because they have different FO tables. They have a different table under T&I than currently what ELAP is currently using. So that's just my comment.
Thank you so much again to everyone taking the time to comment. I'm just going to pause for just another second, see if somebody's just working up the courage to raise their hand. And like I will re-mention what Mike mentioned earlier, if you decide later, like you wake up at 2 and you have a really important comment that you'd like to make, or if you don't want to speak out in the group, please feel free to email your comments to that inbox that's on the screen right now. We do check and monitor that, so we will receive those comments. Okay. Cynthia, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello. I just have a question regarding what is the time frame for all these lovely questions, and I know that there's going to be materials generated to respond to it. Is that going to be published in the ELAP website or sent out to the meeting participants today?
I will say, well, all of this is still very much in development, so there is no answer to that question, but we will make sure the information is available and distributed as best we can.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Sushmita, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, I just wanted to see if this recording will be made available for the rest of us.
Absolutely. As we said earlier, it's being recorded and we will post it on the California ELAP YouTube channel, where you can find all of our fantastic resources, including past ELAP cons. I'll put that plug in there too.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Jerry, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you. And it wasn't because I was shy, it was because I couldn't find the raise hand. I don't use Zoom very often. I just wanted to clarify two things. You may see standards being published on our website, like the chemistry standard posted in December. They're nowhere close to being final. They're years away from being final. And once those standards get final, they're still years away from being adopted. And they won't get adopted in our national program until all of the ABs have voted to adopt them with an implementation date. So we're going to be on the 2016 standard at least for 2 more years, likely longer. Before we implement a new standard, there will be training, there will be documents that summarize the changes between the old and the new, there will be crosswalk documents, there will be new templates, all kinds of stuff. So I don't want to have people be concerned about migrating to a new standard that does not exist. It will not exist for some time.
Great. Thank you, Jerry, for that perspective. I think that's helpful. Okay, I don't want to belabor it. I want to appreciate all of your time, and I will just reiterate again how thankful we are for each of you taking the time out of your day to be here and offer some really great comments. You have given us a lot to work with, and we really appreciate you being part of this process. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and end the meeting, and this should be posted to the YouTube channel probably within the next day or so. And with that, I wish you all a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.